Hey, hey, hey. As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day to day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard to see our way through. Beyond the normal mundane or where unscripted dreams live, join us for thought provoking discussions and interviews that help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So, so today's topic literally is titled Dirty Jobs. So, when you think of dirty jobs, just think about the, I guess you can't say meaningful, but I guess temporary jobs that are kind of like a stepping stone for you to move up in the world or whatnot. Think about those jobs, how maybe you didn't revere or have that much respect for them, but you needed the money at the time to, get through. So you're just kind of like just passing through, so to speak. Think about those jobs and think about like how you had trials and tribulations. Like maybe you're working because, like I said, like you got responsibilities to take care of, right? You got to keep the lights on, you got to pay your rent and whatever else you consider yourself loyal to or feel responsible for. And unfortunately, if you're not exactly where you want to be, sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do. And, sometimes that could really weigh on you from a stress standpoint to where you may not be performing at your full capacity just because it's not what you really want to do. You're just here to collect a check, basically. And that's fine. I can't say we all been there. That's kind of ignorant of me, but I can speak from my own experience that I've been there and I've been through those different capacities over time. So I just want you guys to think like, why do we spend our lives dependent on a job? Like, just think about that whole concept. Feel free to chime in, Marcus.
So the way I think well, I think I came up with this topic. Just thinking about like you work these jobs, how these jobs to do you dirty too. Like on top of maybe you not on top of, I don't know what Joe said is that, like it's maybe something you don't want to do. But even if it is something you want to do, you find yourself in these situations where you feel like there's maybe like some loyalty, or you thought there was more loyalty, you thought you were more valued, and you just like you feel that you've been done wrong in some process, or something happens and the job just did you dirty. So there's a few different angles. I think just for jumping into just the key topics of this episode is just understanding the how replaceable or how valuable you are in some of these roles and kind of what that entails and what that entails and just what that means to us on each level. So like I know a lot of people probably listen to this. Have you ever had a job and they just who's left a job and the business shut down? Like it just like you left and then they just was like, we can't make it without you. Like we
I
just
have.
we're
I,
just we're just in a bad spot, you know.
I have,
Did the
man. Circuit City.
nah man. That well, they was already on the road. The road to but no, just thinking about have you ever left as important as you think you are? Like I've been in leadership positions. I left. Either they hire somebody to replace you, or they have to delegate your work to either have to hire multiple people to replace you, or they can just replace your role outright. But very rarely is a business actually shutting down because of your departure. It's just not happening. Like we've all been, if you've been hired at a job, you replace somebody or you're fulfilling a need that isn't there or wasn't there before. So I think that's just one of the ways to look at it is just kind of understanding, you know, like what's your overall, like you feel like you're valued, but really how disposable are you and how much value are you adding to the organization? But Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, man. I just want people to know that it's bigger than you. You come into a job and you might be, busting you know what, to, do good at your job. Maybe you're trying to earn more pay, get to a better position, whatever that may look like for you. Or maybe naturally you're just a competitor or it's just in your nature where like, you go all out with everything you do. Nothing's wrong with that. That's great, actually. That's what gets you far. So kudos to those people. What I'm trying to get at is that doesn't matter how much hard you work, how hard you work, when you think of a business, especially a big one where you're working for like a chain restaurant or something like that, you're definitely replaceable. Like there's already positions in play. There's supposed to be other backfield roles that are in play. So when situations do happen where an emergency may happen or something like that, like there should be enough rules and regulations, standards and policies to where we can or the organization can fulfill your role. So, some people think that they are untouchable in their role. And yes, it might be true that you're so good that they need you because the talent around that area is not as great or doesn't compare to you. But that still doesn't mean that they can't replace you. And I've seen that happen a few times where people thought they were better than the job and the job pretty much flat out just gave them that slip or gave them the word because they weren't putting up with the extra curricular activities that they were doing outside of the job, So it comes to a point where you're going too far. Think about, I don't know how soon you will see this, but think about someone like John Morant. Amazing, amazing ball player. I love watching him. He's probably one of the most exciting players to watch in the NBA. But this man, I hate to talk on him, but this is a good talking point. Like, I feel like he thinks he's above the game, who just posts themselves on social media with inanimate objects. And I'm talking about like lethal weapons, like what kind of message are you sending to kids that are looking up to you? I know you're not trying to be a role model, and nor did you say you were trying to be a role model, but it comes to a point where if you're catching cases and you're allegedly assaulting minors or whatnot, it comes to a point where you might need to sit down and rethink what you're doing, man. Are you going to play ball where you're under the spotlight 24/7? Or are you going to stick to this unfortunate situations that you get yourself into? And don't get me wrong, with you being a star or whatnot, it's a lot easier for you to get into like stupid situations or whatnot. But that's when you got to come to the realization of yourself that you can't hang with everybody. You know what I'm saying? It comes to a point where your lifestyle has to change and everything because you don't think John Moran is replaceable? You know how many other ball players wish they could play in the league right now and they can't because there ain't enough space? Like there'd be another John Morant eventually. You know what I'm saying? Like people thought there wouldn't be another Michael Jordan, and there hasn't been, but there's been people that came close. Kobe, LeBron, you got people like Steph Curry. Like it might not be the exact person, but what I'm trying to say is like there's gonna always be someone else that's gonna fit the limelight, you know what I'm saying, fit the spotlight, given the generation, given the time, circumstance, like everything in an organization is replaceable.
So that's a hot take right there. Because I didn't know anything about any of that. Because I don't I follow any of that. That's a, I think just kind of going into the next topic here. That's interesting, man. I didn't know he was doing this, but
Yeah, wallet, man.
it's just addressing more so, and this is a systemic thing too. Here's like, why are we so reliant on other people for employment, for work? Why is that a thing that we? I don't. I mean, I have some opinions there, but just ask yourself, like, why? Why is that, and why are we, or a lot of us, spend our lives relying on somebody else providing us an opportunity to our income to cover the cost of our like living expenses and our needs? And just you think about that, you realize like I think most people have been in a situation where you see somebody get fired and you wonder like, are we next or something? I mean, we're in the season now with all these layoffs and things that are happening. I know people are nervous. They're nervous or they've already been laid off and they're trying to figure things out and trying to pivot and figure out like what they need to let go, how they need to minimize their lifestyle, like why they wasted a ton of money on probably some like material things or just lifestyle things that weren't really that essential for them. And just think about just spending a career where like your life, like I don't know, like I've only been like working, I mean, well, probably for about what sounds like 16, 17, so probably almost 20 years. But just thinking like my whole life up until this point, like still just like working for somebody else, even though I have my own business, just bulk of it, working for somebody else, being dependent on someone else for income and just like being at the will, like their will to just fire me if they wanted to and let me go if they wanted to. And being in that position where like you need the you need the income from someone else's business. Like you need to support someone else's business so you can make money. And if you don't make that money, you're in a bad spot, you know? And it's one of those things where I look at it and it's like, well, is there another way to live your life to where you don't have to depend on other people for money like that? Is there a way to scale your life down? Or is there a way that just doesn't run in parallel to what most bulk of the population is doing, and where you can actually just say, well, I can do things in a sustainable way, or you can make an investment to where you can create a life that is sustainable to where you actually choose to go to work. And that if you get fired, you're like, all right, well, I'll just go do something else. You know, you're not pressed. You're not pressed. And you're not at the, like, you don't feel like there's a layer of control that people have over you when you're dependent on for income. There's a layer there. What happens if you remove that layer and then customers can't talk to you any kind of way? You know, like people can't talk to you crazy. Your supervisor can say, they can say stuff, but then you can just be like, well, all right, I'll just leave because you're working on your terms, not theirs. It's a completely different way to look at things. But I guess that's my piece there, Joe.
Well, I guess my question regarding that is, man, like, how old were you when you came to the realization of that? Like, when you grasp that whole concept of like, okay, this is kind of like a fairy tale for me, from my perspective. You know, I understand the whole process of working for an organization, whether you work for like a food chain restaurant or you work for like a healthcare environment, or if you work for like, I don't know, a packaging company like Amazon. Well, Amazon is more than that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is like a lot of us started out on grassroots. And what I mean by grassroots is like you were born into this world and maybe your family didn't have the fortune for you to really like think for yourself. Like when you make fortune, that creates that distance where you can actually have more time to think. It gives you more time to really like focus on what you want to do versus someone that needs the money for standard of living. They're kind of forced to actually, be in the system. And that's kind of like how the society is set up. And so I guess with you coming to that mindset and say that you're not born into it, or maybe you are into, a family that's fortunate enough that give you some time to really like think about what you really want to do for your life or however you want to make your money. Like, how do you I want to word this the right way, but like, how do you come to that mindset? Like, is there like an age group for that? Or do you think that's just a list of experiences or whatnot? Cause I know people that are comfortable with working for you're having a 9 to 5. Like I'm one of those people that have a 9 to 5 and I actually like mine, but it took me a while to get to somewhere where I'm like, okay, I could do this. And on top of that, I got to a point where over the years I was able to save money as I was climbing up because I learned how to budget a little bit, and so where even if I did lose my job today, I would still have like a nest to sit on until I find the next go round.
Yeah. But that's like you have to learn that though, right? And
Yeah.
that's the thing there. Is like, you kind of have to, like a lot of us have to figure it out. And I think that it's just one of those circumstances where there's a different way to play the game, but the bulk of the game is being played by a majority of people the same way. And that's why a lot of people have the same issues. And that's what we try to come here to like kind of find ways to work around that and have those discussions. I think it takes I mean, this is really well, Joe, do you have anything to do like to add to that for I kind of get on that and key takeaway?
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I want to add to that, man, is like this is all like it's whatever you make it, people. So all the people that are listening, it's whatever you make it. There's no right or wrong answer to this. It's just thought provoking questions.
So the one thing, and just takeaway on my end is just like as we discuss this, as we have this discussion, and you think about this, and you think about just how you've worked. Like I was out of college with 5 years, and I figured out I was like, this is a game I really don't want to play because I could see, I could see it because I was able to work my way to running like a couple businesses, and I saw that it's the same stuff, and I still see after having as many jobs as I've over the past few years, it's the same stuff. everywhere. I see the same characteristics, the same different kind of variations of people, the same politics. I see it everywhere. And that's the thing that I'm trying to opt out of. But it's that's why I have my own business myself to work. Like I said, I always say all the time, I say, to work for people. There's nothing wrong with that. Just thinking about like dealing with all of those things and understanding that, well, if that system doesn't serve you, then and you don't like it, then you have to do something else. So I make a choice to work towards something else, but it's not always going to be an easy thing. Like, yes, I wish I could like retire today and just be on my way and do what I want to do every day. But that's not my reality. My reality is you have to put in some work over a series of years and experience a series of failures to even get to points where you've had success. And it's understanding that the alternative, there's a reason why it's difficult. And depending on where you come from, it's going to be more difficult for some than others. But it's understanding that there's another alternative that we don't really talk about that doesn't get pushed out in the mainstream media. That's another discussion for another day. But there's a reason those things aren't put out there. But they're all alternatives that you can pursue, and there are solutions that you can create that kind of live in your own head. Like those are your ideas, not just what we share here. So I think it's worth. Maybe we could just have an episode where we kind of just throw some of this stuff around. But just think about that. Like what could my life be like if I didn't have to depend on somebody, if I wasn't nervous that my boss was going to fire me, if I didn't have to spend my life living paycheck to paycheck? And what are the actions that you could take or a collective of people that have similar interests could take? But I'll close on that.
Well, you heard it first from the man right here. I just want to take out time to just say thank you for supporting Unscripted Dreams and just listening to what we have to say whenever we post our episodes, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, however you may get your knowledge, Spotify, Apple, just keep plugging away and just listening to it. We shorten up the episodes on purpose just so we can make it more digestible as you carry on with your day. We're not trying to, drown out or, you know, trying to just like improvise and waste time. We really want to make things as direct as possible so you can get the message and carry on with your life or your day. So, with that being said, man, I appreciate you guys listening. Just think about it. If you're in the middle of transitioning to where you want to be from an occupational standpoint or however you want to live your life as far as making money, you know, just know that, it's everything is a process. And also know that you're not bigger than any job, especially when you're working for anybody. But then again, you can also say you're not bigger than the job that you may have created or list of jobs you created for other people to work under you. At that point, it's bigger than you. Yeah, whether you realize it or not, you might have started the brand, you might have started a company, but it's bigger than you at some point, right? If it's successful, there's other people that depend on that. So you're not the, one stop shop there. And that's what you got to see, man. You got to look at the bigger picture and understand that, when you create revenue or revenue is created and there's multiple people eating off of that, that means that there's multiple people depending at that point. So at one point, it becomes a team rather than that. So when you think of someone like the artist Drake, Drake ain't Drake. And what I mean by that is Drake depends on so many people just so he can fulfill the fantasies or fulfill the sponsorship, fulfill the fans, the fandom. He has to fulfill all of that. I'm not saying he doesn't respond to fan mail. I'm pretty sure, though, he has someone that organizes that for him. You got to think about the events that he attends, when he's trying to entertain people. He's not doing all that by himself, even down to the music. He's not doing all that by himself. Name one artist that you know that does all of that by themselves. I guarantee you, you won't find one. So what I'm trying to say is like, at a certain point, even if you started a brand, like even with us starting Unscripted Dreams is bigger than us because we actually have people that we speak to about marketing purposes that do things or help us out behind the scenes. Like, at some point it becomes an organization, like it becomes a team at that point. So be mindful of that. You might outshine everybody you work with, but just think about it. If everybody quit on you today and you're the only person there, do you really think you still can run that? So you still need those people no matter how good you are. So don't let it go to your head. All right, later.